So in the last section we learned how to use the Rails console to do create, read, update, and deletes. In this section I want to start to build our application so that we can do that via web on the browser. So one thing that I want to mention is that if we go into app and then controllers, we didn't create a categories controller yet, and we're going to need one. Also, if we go to app views, and you'll see we don't have a categories folder for our view files. If you go into posts, we have edit, index, new, and show. So I'd like to create these for our categories as well, so we can edit, index, new, and show categories. And to do that, we're going to open a shell prompt, and we want to go to cd, we want to go to our sites directory, and then we want to go to my Ruby blog, or whatever you named your application. And what we want to do from here is, just like we did in, I think it was chapter 3 when we generated the post controller, we want to generate a a categories controller. So Rails generate controller categories, it should be plural, and here we can specify the views we want. I'm thinking we should just do the same views as we have for the posts, so that would be index, edit, new, and show. So if we let that run, so it's creating all these views for us. Now, up to in this section, I'm gonna show you how to have the edit screen and have the new screen views. But in the next chapter, we're going to be implementing Active Admin, which is an awesome administrator interface that we can integrate with our application. So we're not going to need these edit and show. We're not going to need these for our final application, but it's still a vital part of Rails for you to understand. So we're just going to create them for now. So if we go back to our app folder and the actual app folder, and you go to controllers, we now have a categories controller. So, and we can also go to views, and we have a categories folder with the views that we created, which you can see on the console right here. So now we're all set to go with that. In the last section I had you update the routes file, the routes config file, and we added this. Okay, so very important that you have these two declared in your routes file, or we won't be able to use the URLs correctly. So what I want to do now is actually run our app in the browser. So let's open up start our server with Rails S. So that should start your WebRick server, and put that aside. And now we can open up our browser. Let me open up a browser here. Okay, and let's just go to localhost 3000. So this is where we left off in our app. If we go to posts, we have our two entries here. Now, if you remember, these are just static. We entered these in our files. This is not being pulled from our database. These are not the posts that we did in the last section. So if we open up, let's go to our file structure, and if we go to the app folder and then to the post controller, you'll see this is where we added it. If you remember, I think we did it in the first section. The last chapter. So this is where it's being pulled from. What we want to do is we want to get the information from our database as opposed to just text that we declare here. So to do that, I'm going to get rid of this. Now, I don't want a separate instance variable for each post. what I want to do is create a variable that will hold all of our posts. So an instance variable should begin with the @ sign symbol, and I'm just going to call it posts. Now, if you remember when we did the console stuff, the post.all command would get an array with all of our posts inside of it. So I want to get that again, but I want to do it in the file rather than the console. So we do that with just post all, just like we did in the console. So now we have an instance variable of posts, which is holding our entire post table. Now, we don't display anything in the controller. The controller is strictly for directing the traffic, really. We display stuff in the views, if you remember the MVC pattern that we've been talking about. So let's save this, and let's open the view. Let's open our index view in the app folder, and then views and posts. If we open the index view, so this is actually what we see here, because the index view is what posts will default to. So what I want to do is I want to display dynamic information from the controller, from this instance variable, and this is accessible to us in the index view because it's in the index action or the index method. So the way we use that is we need to create a loop. We need to create an each loop that will go through each post, and we can grab the content that we need from each post. And so I want to keep the heading, but I want to get rid of this static content. And I'm going to use the same format, which is just an H3 tag and then a P tag. So I'll just move that down for now. And what I want to do is just create the loop. And to create the loop, we want to just open some tags, which is just the less than and then the percent sign. And we want our instance variable, which is posts. Okay, so our instance variable, and we want to do an each loop, so we'll do .each do, and then we want to put posts in these pipe tags, or these pipe symbols, and then we can close that. So this is the top of the loop. That opens it. Now we need to close it, and we do that with end. So this opens it, this closes it. So this is grabbing all of the posts from the controller from this post.all, and we want to specify what we want to happen for each post or each iteration. And what we want to do is display the title and the body. So if we copy this, we'll actually copy the horizontal rule as well, and we paste that here. Space this out. So if we just run it like this, it's just going to display the static title, and it's going to give us an error because this isn't even an instance variable anymore. We took that out of the controller. So for the title, what we want to do is display the dynamic title. And remember, if we're going to display stuff on the browser, we need to use the equal sign as well. Okay, so we just want to do post.title, and then we want to close them. So that should give us our dynamic title. Now we need to do the same thing here. Let's take this variable out, and what we want to do here is post.body. So this should work. Let's get rid of this static stuff. So if we save this, and then we reload our page, we get our dynamic content. And if you remember, this is what we added in the Rails console in the last section. We have our title and then our paragraph. So this is now a database-driven application. It's pulling this stuff from the database. And we're also going to make, if not in this section, in the next, we're going to make these titles clickable, so we can click on them and it'll take us to the single post, which is what I want to do next. We're going to use the show action so that we can see just single posts, and we'll do that through the URL say if it's the post with the ID of 1, this would have a 1 before the post. But I mean, it's not going to work yet because we haven't implemented it. But ultimately, that's what we should be able to do. So we want to go to our app folder and then go to the post controller. And so next, what we want to do is the show. I'm just going to move this up. This doesn't matter, the order. It's just for my own personal OCD. So what we want to do here is, you can see the index action took all the posts. What we want to do is use the find action to get a single post, and we did this in the last section in the console, if you remember. So this would be something like, let's say post.find. Now this find action, it takes a parameter, and the parameter should be the ID of the post. So if we have post.find1, it'll grab the post with the ID of 1. Now we don't want this. We don't want our show method to just get this one post with the ID of 1. We need a dynamic value in here that'll change depending on whichever link we select here, because you don't want the user to have to, obviously you don't want them to put in the ID in the URL, because that'd be insane. So we have this params, this value we can use, which will grab the ID from the URL. So we want to use params and some square brackets. 1 second. And we just want to put in the ID symbol like this. So this little line right here is just going to grab the ID from the URL, and then it'll proceed to do the define method, which will grab it out of the database. We don't have to write any queries here like we would with, say, PHP. It does that. It's all under the hood of Rails, does that automatically. So let's save that. So that's all set. The control is all set. Make sure you save it. And then we want to go into the views folder, and we want the post show view. Right now we just have this static heading. We don't want that. Now if you remember, in the index view we did the loop, and the reason for the loop was to go through each post and display. We don't need a loop because we're only displaying a single post. So all we need to do is to put our tags in and do @post, and we want the title here, so that should do it. That should give us the title, and then we want to put the paragraph tags, and in those tags above we did the title, so in these tags we want to do the post.body. Oh, and you need the @ sign because it's an instance variable. So we should just get a heading with the title and the body of whatever post, whatever ID we put in the URL. So let's save this. Now this here should be the first post. This is an updated title, and this is some sample text. So we'll go to post/1, and here we have our single post. If we go to post/2, we'll have our second post. Now if we go to 3, which we don't have, we'll get an active record error. So yeah, I mean, what we want here is a link to go to 1 and 2. Actually, one more thing, I'm gonna actually add the date. Since this is a blog, it's a good idea to have the date. So if you remember, by default, Rails puts a created at and an updated at field. We'll call them in the database. So we want the created at field. So I'm just going to put them in small tags. And if we copy this and then we change body to created at, and then save it and reload, you'll see it gives us a date. Now this is a pretty horrible looking date format, so we can easily clean this up using the string to time function, the string ftime function. So what we want to do is, just after the created at, we want to add on str ftime, and we want some parentheses. So that's the function, str ftime, and in here we want to format the date, and we can do I want the day, no, the month. Yeah, we'll do the month, and then the day, and I think I need a period here, and y. Trying to remember the right syntax. I think that's right. Let's save that, go back and reload, and I guess that wasn't right. Oh, I forgot the quote. Save, reload, and now we have March 20th, 2013. So that's the show method. Well, it's the show action, I should say, and the find method. So now what we want to do is have the titles linkable or clickable. So we want this to take us to the second post and this to the first. And the way we do that, we need to go back into our index. If we go to views, posts, and index, what we want to do is we want to make this a link. And Rails has a shortcut or a helper, whatever you want to call it, that helps us build links, so we don't need to use the standard href tags. What we want to do is just put in link to _2, and then it takes two parameters. First, it takes what you want the link, what the title should be, which we're going to leave it as the post title, and then the next parameter is just where you want it to go, and we want it to go to the post ID, and that should work. Let's save it and reload, and it didn't work. Link to post ID, link. Actually, I think we can just leave the ID off and just have it as post. Yeah, there we go. So it's just link to, and then the post title, post.title, and then just post. So if we click on one of these, it brings us to the actual single page. So very, very cool, very easy. Now if we were to do this with PHP or another language, this would have been a lot more complicated, and there would have been a lot more custom programming going on. But Rails makes it extremely easy to create, read, update, and delete. I was going to try to squeeze in create and update in this section, but we're running out of time, so I'll make the next section, I'll show you how to actually go to post/new and /edit, so we can actually insert posts from the browser as well as update posts. So I'll see you in that video.